So hello, my name is Myriam Hivon. I'm the Director of Training at the Fondation du Dr. Julien. Actually, I've been working with Hélène and Dr. Julien for the past 5 years, and I'm responsible for the continuing professional education in community social pediatrics. So it's not, I'm louder? Louder, okay. I haven't been presented in English for a long time, so I'm a bit nervous. Please don't hesitate to ask me to repeat if it's not clear. What we are going to do today is to present you the model of the community social pediatrics model. This is a model that is based on an integrated social medicine. This is a model based on integrated social medicine that relies on medical, legal, social science fields in order to address, well, to identify and to eliminate or reduce as far as possible the sources of toxic stress that affect children and their development and their well-being. So this, Dr. Julien will explain it much better than me, but this is what we will try to look at, to explain to you today. This model was developed by Dr. Julien and Hélène, and now it's being implemented in about 40 different communities in Quebec. And it's also started to be implemented in New Brunswick and in Ontario, and in at least three native communities as well. In Quebec, all in Quebec so far. So our presentation will have two parts. On the first part, Dr. Julien will present you the community social pediatric model, and then we'll have a short break, and then Hélène will take the microphone to talk about the added value of integrating children's rights in your practice. Our understanding is that you come from different backgrounds, so maybe for some of you this will be new, and for some others it will be more familiar, so we'll try to navigate. Hélène will also present some initiatives that we actually implemented in our clinics, and that were aimed at empowering children and families to make their own decision and to be part of the solutions in solving their difficulties or the problems they encountered. So we will present some of these very inspiring initiatives. My own role today will be to guide you as best as possible through this presentation. We thought about a few activities just to make you reflect also on your practice and maybe connect what we're doing with what you are doing in your practice. So I will guide you through that. I will also try to be, and this is the hardest task, the guardian of time, because we only have a few hours, and Dr. Julien speaks a lot, so I will try to to be the guardian of time for this for today. So. Our expectations or our hope is that at the end of this presentation, you will be more familiar with our 7 key principles that we actually put forward in community social pediatrics. We also hope that you will understand better the added value of referring to children's right to address global health status of vulnerable children. And finally, we hope that you'll be able to articulate some of the concepts that we will discuss today to guide vulnerable children, especially by using collaborative relationships with the child, the family, the community, and the institutions that work with the family and the child. So these are our hopes, and let's try to reach them. In order to do this, we would like to start by taking you to a journey with Jimmy. We thought it would be a good idea to tell you about the story of Jimmy. Jimmy is now an adult. When we met him, he was 6 years old, and the idea to tell you this story is to actually illustrate concretely what our model is, and also to help you reflect about your own practice. So When we met Jimmy, he was, like I said, 6 years old, and he was already known, I don't know if you use this term in English, but the terror of the neighborhood. He did everything he could to provoke rejection. He was very good at it. Earlier in his short life, he had been sent home from kindergarten and daycare on a regular basis. Nobody will keep him. He was so disruptive, actually, that the school regularly deprived him of his right to education. They were sending him back home. So he was already at 6 years old involved in small infractions, and he was already a bully. So the school and the mother were completely overwhelmed. So when they came to the clinic, the community social pediatric clinics, they were asking actually that he be given some medication to control his disruptive behavior. And it was meant to be for his own good and for the good of others, because he could be quite violent. So this is what we had as information when we first met Jimmy. I just would like to invite you to take a moment to write down your thoughts about taking your own practice. Write down your thought about how you would explore the causes that are behind Jimmy's behavior, because obviously he's not behaving like that just for fun. So there are some reasons. So what tools would you have to explore the causes behind his behavior? And also in your current or future practice, what would you do for Jimmy? How would you intervene? It's actually part of the community social pediatrics model that we practice, like building a trusting relationship is really at the basis of what we do in order to be able to do something with Jimmy, actually, and looking at his history, trying to understand what's been going on before, what's the situation now. This is also something really important. You named the rights. What rights are we refusing him if we leave him in this situation? Here you name observation. I would observe him. Observation gives us a lot of information about verbal and nonverbal language, is that right? And also the strength. I like this, many of you mentioned this, that not looking just at the difficulties and the problems, but also looking at the strengths and how you can work starting from there with the strengths of Jimmy and what could be done with these. So these are all elements that we also take into consideration in our model. Would you like to add something, Dr.
Yeah. All of your answers are really good. It's impressive, in fact. But why it wasn't done before? Why the teacher and the school and the physician who was following that child didn't do that? You know, that's the big question, because we don't have in our institution, it's very difficult to do what you're planning to do. Probably those who works in the institution, you don't have time. You need to do that as a team. If you do it alone, it's more complicated. The doctors usually don't have time to do that. That's where we come with community social pediatrics, developing a way to do it, integrated, different people from different sectors, including schools, youth protection, physician, and everybody, so we can do it systematically with these children. Because you know, probably if you work with children, you know this kind of case. It's a classical case. We could have put the child abuse the same way and so on. But there's no method really well organized or enough people to do it that way. So they referred to us because they know we're doing that kind of evaluation, but themselves they could have done it. That's the issue. And like the teacher is really close to the child, but she doesn't have time to get close to the child enough to understand what's going on. So they will eventually send the child for medication. He needed medication at the beginning because he had ADHD, but it was quite more complicated than regular ADHD, and he was very oppositional. you couldn't get close to him. He would defy you right away and insult you or regress you. Okay. I'll give you the answer right away, so because this book, How to Love a Child, from Korczak. This child thought nobody loved him. Okay. That was the big issue. But nobody knew that because he was so aggressive and manipulating people and opposing that he was really not permitting to anybody to came close to him. So that was the big issue. How do we get close to him? How can we go to, because even the mother that was fed up with that, she wanted to put him in foster home, was not really accessible. She was also an handicapped mother. She couldn't, she needs a stroller to walk. They were living in a two-story apartment, and Jimmy's room was downstairs, and the mother couldn't access that level of the house. So he used to fly away through a window at night and fly away from the house. And the mother didn't even know he was away from the house. So the whole issue is how to love a child, how to define a way to make sure that he knows that we love him, all of us, and to use the symptoms, the main symptoms, which was opposition and impulsivity, and to go, I was, from the text you put on before, all symptoms have a meaning. You need to know what's the meaning behind the symptom, any symptoms. The flesh.
Arrow on the right, on the computer.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to talk about our model of community social pediatrics, which is really based on this value, how to love a child, in fact, and not be shy to love a child. And that's also something very important, because in our systems, you're not really allowed to come close to a child and say to a child you love him. Mainly at the first visit, you don't do that, and they usually say you keep a distance between your patient because you have to be objective. But if you're objective, you'll never know any meaning. You need to be subjective and get close to the child and close to the family, and not to be afraid of talking about the emotions, in all respect. Okay, that's very important. The arrow. Okay, that was the wrong one. Okay, there's a lot of barriers when you want to access a child and look at the global needs, the rights that are not addressed, and and you need to be very kind of humble when you access these people to make sure they will accept that you get close to them. And that's the main barrier, how to put down the barrier, and there are different barriers, I would say. The lack of real participation of children and families is one of them. Frequently, like with this kid, there were multidisciplinary meetings at school. They talk about the behavior of the child, and they never address really the problem with the child or the family. Okay, he was always punished. He was put out of the classroom, and he was considered a real terror. And the more he was considered a terror, the worse he became, in fact. At the beginning, when I met him the first time, I asked him what you would want to do in your future. He said, either a criminal or a liar. Liar, not a liar, lawyer. Yeah. Well, I don't know why this word is so close, and liar. And,
Well, that's a great word.
so maybe he told me he would become a liar then, but I understood liar. Okay, so that's a real barrier, not to approach the child himself. One of you said you need to talk to the child. For sure, you need to talk to the child, but you need to get close to him to. Not to react to his opposition, in fact. And that's very important, the attitude. That's why usually with smaller children, you will just sit down with the child. You never address a child like that because he's going to oppose more and more. And you have to laugh also. If the child laughs, you laugh also. It's very important. These are small things, but it's so important when you try to get close to a child. When we address this at the clinic, it's a house, as you've seen, and it's very, it's like their home. It's not fancy. There are coffee, there are fruits and things like that. And when we see the child the first time, we just talk to the child right away, not to the adults. We invite the school, we invite youth protection people, we neighbors if the family wants to come, but we don't address these people right away in the waiting room. We just address the child first, okay? And at his own level, if he's playing with a car, we're going to play with a car with him, without any wording from the beginning. This attitude makes things more easy, and after a few minutes, usually, you invite the child to come with you to check his heart. And the child, most of the time, will give you his hand and come. And you didn't invite the adults yet. And that's very important too, because the child is the main issue. And you consider the child as the most important person. And when that's done, then you can start questioning or asking any issues in the family and things like that. If you don't do that, it won't work. Okay, that phase is very, very important. And then you talk to the people, the adults, the family, but they're so surprised that you address their child in such a way that you seems to love him, that they will participate also. And they tell us frequently, it's the first time somebody consider us as real person, as parents. You address our child first, then us, then the people who are invited. And this sequence of addressing issues is very powerful. There's also a lack of access to global integrated services in all our systems. You have the school systems who address things their way, the youth protection people who address things their way with their law. You have hospitals who address their things their way also. They all have multidisciplinary team, but it's not really integrated. Integrated between these people, but integrated with the family also, and the extended family. And you cannot address global issues if you don't do things in an integrated way, where the family and the child are the prime source of information and of solutions also. And you tell them, okay, we won't bring solution if you don't suggest solution and if you don't agree with solution. Okay, they're part of it completely from beginning to the plan of action. We also have another important barrier, which is disengaged communities, because we've been told from years to let the government institution take care of our children. And it's a shame because no government loves children. They don't love children. They address children's issues, but to address difficulties of vulnerable children problem, you need to love these people. You cannot love these people if you're not close to them in their home and their community, and if the community is not involved. So community is disengaged most of the time, and we need to work with communities to take back the responsibility of their children. And that's a big issue. Many community groups do that, but they're not integrated themselves frequently. In our main area in Montreal, there's probably 200, 300 community groups who do a very good job, but they're not integrated. They do it their way with their mission, and families cannot cope with that most of the time. So it gives a lot of inequities and barriers to find out, to work in global health issues. There's many strategies to combat adversities, vulnerable, which suffers vulnerable children in vulnerable families most of the time. Where I'm talking about millennium morbidities. Well, social medicine has existed for years, and it was mainly involved with poor people, with infectious disease, with poor life condition, but mainly in prevention. The medical system used to work in prevention with vaccination and food and breastfeeding and things like that. There have been lots of advance in our society from these measures to prevention, but we didn't develop really any strong method to address social issue or social I have difficulty sometimes to find my words in English, but it will come back. Social involvement of problems in children, behavior problem, learning difficulties, child abuse and neglect are all problems which come from the society. It doesn't come from infectious disease, doesn't come from a virus, so you cannot treat them the same way as you do in regular medicine. And so these morbidities are very frequent in a vulnerable population of children, and we need to find out a new paradigm to address these issues. According to these millennium morbidities, we're facing problems and barriers like powerless families. Our families are powerless. They don't think they can solve the problem themselves. They think they're bad people, and they're told they're bad people. And there's a loss of power of these families, which doesn't help at all the issue of vulnerability. We have disengaged communities. We have also a society which is getting more and more impoverished. The more and more vulnerable children are in the communities. So our strategy is to develop a kind of home, a house in the community where children would find security, attachment, reference if they need, diagnosis, all in the same setting, looking really like their own home. So it's a home where they know they will be loved, in fact. When a child comes to our house, they know they will find somebody who will talk to them, listen to them, care for them, and love them. And they know that. In the community, they go to, in our main settlement, this house, they would come on their way to the classroom and say, can you help me? Or they can be referred by neighbors or by any systems. And everybody knows if they go to, they say, we're going to Dr. cross them in the street, sometimes they say, where are you going? I'm going to Dr. Julien. But I'm Dr. Julien. I said, no, Dr. Julien is the house, in fact. And that's very important, and that's very powerful because it's a reference for these children and for these families. And for sure, our goal is to become, well, what we want to address is healthy children. We need empowered family. We mobilize the community, and we're working in a more just society. So that home has been multiplied by 40 now in the province of Quebec. There's also one in New Brunswick, another one in Ontario, and it's spreading. And it's very, we're very pleased with that. And all these homes do exactly the same thing, the same method that I will talk about if I have some time. I just want to remind you that children are the prime source of knowledge and strategy all the time. It's always the child who controls everything that we're going to do with him and the family. Professionals are also on equal foot with family networks. We're all there together. This notion of circle around the child, we call it the small circle when we do the first step of the evaluation and orientation of the child. The professionals are there, but the family is there, and they are there all the time. It's a very, again, a very big barrier to have people accept that the child and the family and the parents are there all the way from the beginning. So getting close to them, evaluating the issues, and plan of action, they're always there. We never put the child in another room or the family in another room and talk just between us. That's the worst thing to do. They don't rely on you if you do that. So they're there all the time. And for us, the community also play an important role in healing. That's the only way that you will address children's global need and develop a plan of action which will make sense for the child and the family. The main thing we do in these homes from the beginning is to, we call that, well, the small circle, which is evaluation orientation. We need, when we meet these people, to know exactly what's going on. We have 1 hour or so to make sure we address all issues. You can do that in 1 hour with a team. If you're alone in your office, or alone with the child, or alone with the parents, or with the interveners, you won't be able to get to the expectation we have to know the history, to know the background, and to make a plan of action to address the real issues. So the method, it's a kind of, it's been called a chaotic harmony or orientation evaluation because we're all around the table, all together, and it goes in different way, and it's always guided by the child and the family. If the child reacts in some way, we'll go that way. If the parents start crying, we'll go this way. So it's not organized. That's why it was called a chaotic harmony. The method is rather simple, but it has to be applied very strongly. The first, it's called EEDA. The first E is really what we've been talking about, establishing a special relationship. Special means loving a relationship, respectful relationship, and it's all start there. If you miss that step, you won't be able to go to the other steps. So we're all focusing on that. We smile, we laugh, we we always say it's the most beautiful child we've ever seen. You see, that, yeah, you understand that, and we do it because we believe it also. They're all beautiful, even though they have so many problems. And when you feel that you're getting close to them, then you can exchange information, okay? And go rapidly to the real issues. But go rapidly to the real issues and meaning of the symptoms means that you cannot do it with a test or a pre-established questionnaire. You cannot do, we never do that. You have to feel it. It's a question of feeling. So you have to feel the child, mainly the child. So when we're in the room to evaluate the child, you have to always see the child. Okay, it's a table. It's like a kitchen, but there's a place where we can examine the child. There's a place where the child can play, and he's invited to go in any way, in a place. If you say, I want to use your stethoscope, you say, you can play with my stethoscope, okay? It's yours. And observing the child will tell you right away what's going on. Not verbally most of the time, but you can develop a way to decode a child. I wrote a book on decoding. It's going to be, it's translated in English, but it's not published yet. How to decode the child. And that's really very interesting to do that. It's a challenge all the time, but it's always winning all the time. I had two twins last week. It was very special because I didn't see them. It was the first time I saw them. They were referred from the school because they had behavior problem, different behavior problem, both of them, a boy and a girl, 6 years old. And one of them, you know, when they came to the clinic, the mother was very nice, smiling. She didn't seem that vulnerable because she was, you know, she was tall. She said tall and strong, and so I asked the child to, when they arrive in the room, you do what you want, okay? Because I understand that there was quite a dynamic between the two children, and I said okay. And they decided to go to the play place in the room, and I decided to go and play with them without talking with the mother anymore. And we always work with, you know, we're not. There's a physician, a social worker, and people invited from school, from different organizations. So they sat at the table and we played. And rapidly I asked, who was the firstborn between you two? And the boy said, her. I said, you were the first. She said, yes, I was really anxious to go out. And she said that like that. I said, oh, and about you? No, I was the second, but I wanted to stay. She said, why? He said, yes, it was dark, but it was so nice. And I wanted to stay in. I said, okay. But you see, I knew right away, you know, they put me on the right track right away. And it happened, and then the mother started crying, just after a few minutes. But we had the link rapidly, and it was a real secure attachment problem with different behavior. The girl was very dramatic. She was a comedian. She had so much talent, very strong child, but very aggressive. And we find out rapidly that, I said to the mother, why are you crying? She said, oh, she's so aggressive with me. She fight me, she hit me, and she made huge tantrum most of the time. And the boy was different. The boy was very silent, very close to the mother. When she started crying, he came right away to her and enter in her, really. So we addressed it, it's a good example. It's an easy one, but when you observe the child and you get close to the child, they will put you in link with what you have to do. And it never fails, in fact. And it's a very interesting practice to do that, because you learn more and more from the child. And then when you come to action, they will suggest different action. And you know already that they have some power that you will use. The girl, I said, you should be a comedian or something. I said, no, I want to sing. Oh, fine, we have a garage of music where you can come and sing with us. You see, you just develop your plan of action from what you gather from information. But you should not follow a line. You just let you guide by the child and the family. If you follow a line, because you've been pre-trained to diagnosis and to method of diagnosis, it doesn't work with social problems and diseases. Then you decode the third one is decoding knowledge and experience. You just put on the table at one point, you say, okay, I have enough information. I think this might be a problem. What do you think? And they have to express themselves, okay, like you did before. And the parents are invited to comment on that. That mother said, oh, I was so impressed because you right away found out what was going on, and now it makes sense to me, but I didn't see that. Then she will accept to be helped. We have art therapy, musical therapy to help this kind of problem, and we call it Ziad, with the mother and the child and so on. So we have tools to do that, but she accepted right away to get involved with an educator and a art therapist to get involved. And the child will come to the garage of music because the boy wants to play guitar. We have guitar lessons, which is fantastic. You see, the plan of action is not medication. It's something to realize a dream of a child or a strength of the child. And then you may think of medication. Our case before, he needed medication also to, Jimmy, to decrease the impulsivity in opposition. But the other issues were more important to do. So you just add different action to make sure it fits with your plan for global health. Plus fort? Okay. Okay. Yeah, Jimmy. C'est ton tour? Okay. I'm a little bit mixed up, I mean.
Sorry. I just wanted, well, Dr. Gier just presented like the main method that we use, establishing a trusting relationship, sharing information, trying to build a common understanding of what's going on with the kid and the family, and then setting a plan of actions that start from the kid and from the family. I just wanted to go back to Jimmy a little bit to show you what we discovered using this method, what we discovered about Jimmy. So when we met him, through discussion, through sharing, actually you met him with his mother, and the school was also present at the meeting, at the first meeting. And what was discovered is that Jimmy's father was in jail since he was born, so he's never really been in touch with his father. His mother lurched from depression to depression, so she was sick. Most of the time, so she couldn't really take care of him properly. She had to take in roomers to pay the rent, to actually be able to pay the rent, and the fridge was not always, well, actually most of the time it was empty. So Jimmy just started life in a hard way, and he had to count on himself to actually go through through life. So he learned at a very young age to model, to compensate the fact that the mother was not really there for him. So this is what we've learned from this sharing quite rapidly, I think, during the first meeting. And it was clear for us that if nothing was done, I mean, what were the options for Jimmy? He would probably go to a school for kids with behavioral problems, which will probably be far away from home, and which will probably increase the chances of becoming a dropout, or yeah, this is what we see usually. And he could also risk of hanging out with offenders and sinking into some criminal behavior. So obviously we had to do something. So now what we're going to present to you is the 7 key principles that actually guided our actions with Jimmy and with all the other kids that we meet. So I'm leaving this to you.
The key are important because everything I told you about is kind of...
Plus fort, docteur. What
You don't understand me in the back.
Understand you, we can't hear you all the time because the fans. Speak a little louder.
We try to switch it off. Michael, if you can maybe check, because I tried, but I guess it doesn't like my fingers.
Okay.
Or if you want to move to the middle, it's very.
You know, I'll come close. I'll come closer. The same I do with children, in fact. Yeah, the voice is fading away anyway. Yeah, the keys are important. If you remember the keys, the method comes easier. Okay. Key number 1 is really active listening. Yeah, we talk about it, but it will make it more standard. Active listening and taking lead from the child. You see, that child, we're in the back street where the house is. And, you know, we meet with people, we gather, and these are some parents and interveners. And I'm quite close to that child. So I was taking the picture. And he's very, you know, he listened to me all the time because we're close. And if something happened, he'll tell me right away. If I ask a question, he will talk to me right away. And we entertain this way of being close to children by playing with them outside, you know, meeting them in the street and at the Garage of Music and things like that. So we have all the setup to be close. We're very close to school, so we just walk on the street, and when they pass in the morning, we say hello, and that's it, you see. But that's very important. Key number 2 would be to identify children's needs. You all know about global needs, you know, related to physical, emotional, mental, cultural, spiritual. We know that. But it's difficult to address these issues, you know, just physical and then mental, because they're all so linked together, mainly with the issues of mental health that we have. So, you know, mental health for us is probably 80% of our children with anxiety and things like that. So you have to address things differently than usual. And in the periphery of the circle, these are the strengths that you need to work really with an action plan which is global. So you need to address stability. Most of these children don't have stability. So you just define a way to do something more stable for them. Our house is something stable. It's been there for decades. I'm there since decades. So they can rely on that stability if they don't have it at home. And we invite the parents also to see our house, how it works, and to learn more to be stable themselves, you see? And that's really the way we work. Competence. We know these children, Hélène will talk about it, have gift and strength. So we try to know what are those gifts and to address them and to support these gifts. If I talk about the Garage of Music. Garage of Music is where children can do music for free in group and have people who love them too there. So we develop their competence in different way. Balance, nothing is balanced in their life. They don't know what it means to have a balanced life. So we also work on that with the families. Motivation, they all bring us their school report card. I want to see the report card when we make the follow-up because I'm interested in that. Most of the time I ask parents, how's the report card? Is it good? Oh, I didn't look at it yet. I lost it. But we want to see this report card because it's important for the child to be motivated to have good academic results. And the child is pleased to see that we're very interested, you see. Identity is, Chris mentioned identity just before, is something very, very strong. It's one of the most important motivation to development. And these children don't have much identity. They don't know who's the father, why this guy is at home. He's not the father, he's different, he needs change every 6 months, and so on. So we work on identity. They identify to us. All the interveners in our home know that they have to attach and identify the child with us to complete the identity. We have summer camps for some of our children, and it's very surprising because when they come back from the camp after a week or two, sometimes they go first to the interveners before to the parents, you see. So we don't replace the parents, but we'll hug the child and bring the child to the family. The social issues, they don't have a social life, so we organize all kinds of activities to show them how to socialize, in fact, and how to get to participate in a group, for example. And security is the same. We're a place where we offer security. If they're insecure, they can come to our place and we'll talk about it. So keeping in mind this circle, when you address, when you evaluate a situation, a family situation or a child problem, is very useful to define an action plan. On est-tu dans le temps? Oui. Okay. The third one is we talk about it too, decoding verbal and nonverbal language. Verbal is well, when they talk it's fantastic, but they'll never tell you with words what they're suffering and their emotions. So you need to use the nonverbal decoding to address this issue. And you just playing with the child, you know a lot, and how he reacts, how he gets angry, and that all fit in the 1 hour first evaluation that we do to decode the nonverbal language. This child is in fact autistic. The father is very, very close with that child, and when we address the child that way, lower than the child, at the left it's an educator. In the family, you can decode lots of things already in that, and it's also very very powerful for us because you know that you're on the right track. Even when you do the exam, we always do a physical exam. In fact, when we do the evaluation, we're a physician also. Yeah. And just the child lying down like that, I wouldn't check the child like this because the child would be very insecure. So you need to really address the child like this, putting your hand on the tummy and say, oh, how was it last night? Was there many people at home? Because I heard that there was a fight. You say, oh, yeah. So you see already the anxiety lowering because you address the right issue, and he will confirm that your hypothesis that he didn't sleep well because there was too much noise and alcohol abuse and things like that at home. You know that just by being there with the child, but the same level. If
We spoke about it in education, exact same thing. When the teacher is above,
Oh, yeah?
nothing happens. Yeah.
Ah, that's good.
The teacher should be at the same level, right? We spoke about it. And it just
Same with you. You're
yeah.
there on the table. I'm here.
Yeah.
You won't
And
be
you
too
have to
much.
go forward.
You'll freak out probably. And the child, it's worse with the child. So you really to address the child the same level. And it's a key. Okay. The other key is that's important. The Community Social Pediatrics Center at the center is really a wheel to engage other wheels. And nobody does that really the same way we do, addressing fundamental needs, global needs, health determinants, children's rights, all together, because they're all the same, in fact. If you know, it's different wording to say the same thing, okay?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
At what we're talking about now, the orientation and evaluation meeting, you don't have all those groups there.
We tend to, yeah.
So you
They're
have,
all invited.
so let's take the example of Jimmy. Who was there? The teacher?
The school was there. The mother, the mother could come, even though she's handicapped, because we make sure she was there. Youth protection was there. Who else?
Was youth protection there because there was a file?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was already open. Yeah, because he was so. He was
Disruptive.
running away frequently. So youth protection was there, and they all wanted medication at that time. But at first evaluation, we invite social services, education, help people who are involved. Sometimes we may be 15 around the table. At first evaluation. Oh yeah, because
And
the more
community, people from the community? I mean, there's the
community
family network,
groups,
so there's some
daycare,
friends, like, but the daycare
neighbors,
center, the neighbor,
friends, extended family.
the
The
people
more
from
we are, the more powerful it is. Okay, that's we didn't put it as a key, but when you have 12 people around the table who take care of the child, different ways, different plan. Frequently they have 3, 4, 5 different plan of action. Nobody integrated that. That's the place where we're going to go deeper in the understanding of the symptoms, get close to the people, try to make one plan all together. You know, put all these plans, you know, in schools, they call it the plan PI, plan intégré. But it's integrated within the school. It's not integrated with other people.
That's a 1-hour meeting.
Yeah.
You got 15 people around the table.
Yeah.
Pure logistics of it, I'm just kind of thinking to myself.
No, that's, I love that because, and most of our, you know, they have to do that in all the new centers that opening. You know, it's the method. You have to learn how to, I talked to you yesterday about the chief of our orchestra. You need to orchestrate that. Give the possibility to everybody to talk, but not too long. Address the real things right away, but you guide that. Okay, why do you put this child out of your classroom? Oh, I cannot stand it. He always he stand up. He doesn't raise the hand for question. He bug other children. Okay, that's all I need to know. Then what are you doing youth protection? You know, is he neglected? Is he abused? What's your plan? Okay, but you take time for all these, and then you as a chief of orchestra, you say, okay, now we have an harmony. What can we do together? But in 1 hour you can do that. But you have to manage the time. You have to address the real issue. You have to say, okay, the child said me while I was examining him that there was a fight recently at home. Is that true? What can we do with that? But it's possible to do that.
So you move to a different level of discussion then, and this now you're talking to the
But the
professional.
method, you see,
What's the relationship with the child? What's going on?
That's-
It's important where you play the music, and so often we have these meetings in a room that belongs to child protection, or in the school, which is a place where the child is miserable. And the difference is that you guys have a space, and we use our space where it's a neutral space, where it's
Yeah.
it might even be a community center. It's where the kid has good experience, where the family feels on equal footing. But it's terrible to bring families in when you've got 30 people around, and mom, who didn't like school either, is overwhelmed. So you need to go into kind of Switzerland. You need to go into
It's not
neutral
neutral, in
place.
fact.
And that's what I think people miss here as teachers. Having these integrated case managements in the school is often not the right place. Move it into the community center, move it in the neighborhood house, move it into the after-school care, move it into your center if you have it. Don't hold it in your territory. You're in power.
Completely right. Sometimes, frequently in fact, we have the social worker from Youth Protection. The mother ate her. Okay, she don't want to see her because when she goes to her home, she looks around and see if there's food in the fridge, and so she ate her. She don't want to see her, and usually they would sit like that, the social worker there, and I said to them, she's part of the team. We need her. Okay, look at her, listen to her. I don't ask you to love her. Just don't block her. Okay, but you have to deal with these things. But that again, it's rather easy to do if you manage it well, if you respect people, if you give many space to the mother, the father, and the child. And while you talk, I told you just before, you observe the child, because the child will, sometimes they play, okay? And then we talk, and there's this issues of physical abuse. Okay? And we said, oh, you hit the child then. And other people are there. And then the child is playing. You look at him, you look at us, because he knows you address the right thing. And frequently he will come. So it means really that you're on the right track. You address the right issue. So, but interveners would say, no, we don't want to talk about that in front of the child. Why? The child knows he's been witnessing or victim. So we address the real thing, and the child will agree with me. And you can also address the child and say, what do you think? Should we talk about that? Yes. Okay. But you, as a chief or orchestra, you need to always look at the child, make sure the family is comfortable with that they agree. We talk about these issues, but they all agree. They come for that. They come to find a different solution, a new way to address a child who's not happy, who's aggressive, who already is a criminal at 6, 7 years old. So you're addressing real issues, but you have to address it the right way. You just don't go around and, I would be surprised. Maybe the child won't address that. Yes, we address it with the child, with the family. And that's how it works, and that's why it's so powerful.
Can I just add something? Want to add about this question. Dr. Julien is really good at orchestrating the group when it's there, but there's a preparation to that meeting. There's what we call a pre-evaluation, where we actually contact the family and we decide with the family who will be attending the meeting. So yes, all these people, all these institutions can be invited at the table, but it's always with the consent of the family. And we invite the people that are already involved with the family, of course, so that are significant to the family.
Is that true of, you have this pre-evaluation and orientation? This is a pre-discussion that you have
Yes.
with the parents?
Yes. Usually a social worker from our clinic will do the pre-evaluation. We'll call the parents.
Yeah.
Let's say we had a reference, okay? They
Yeah.
want to meet us. So they will call the parent and discuss, explain what will
Explain
take
the
place,
process.
the process, so they don't arrive at the meeting with respect to what are all these
Yeah.
people doing here. It will happen that the families will say, I don't want them there, and we will accept that, right?
we'll
For the first
discuss
meet, we
before.
will discuss
Yeah.
the added value of having these people there, but if really they don't want it for the first meeting, we will accept that, okay, let's not invite the youth protection to
Yeah.
this meeting. But then we will make a link with youth protection.
Yeah,
We will inform.
it seems to me what you're doing in that pre-meeting is you are in fact mediating with the family to help them understand the benefits of
Yes.
having the social worker
So,
there.
yes.
And also learning, I'm speculating, learning what you will need to manage at the meetings to help the parent feel safe with the social worker. Is that?
We're not going necessarily that far,
that far?
at that first meeting. It's a meeting usually on the phone, and we collect a few information to understand the demand.
Yeah.
What is the demand? Why are they coming to us?
Yeah.
But we don't dig deeper than that. That will be done at the evaluation
Yeah.
of
The main
orientation.
blockage would be with social worker from youth protection.
Yeah.
The school, they always agree, they come, and, you know, they invite themselves who they want, they care, you know, they would accept probably 98%. Youth protection is more touchy because they have such power, but I usually would say we're there, okay, to support you. If the youth protection, if we disagree with youth protection, we will disagree in front of everybody, and say, and why. And then we negotiate, we mediate to arrive to a point where we can share a common action plan. If the plan, when the youth protection comes and say, what's your plan? We'll put the child in foster home. Say, maybe it's a little bit too rapid. Can we do something else? Okay, and then we're used to work with them now. At the beginning it was hard because we need to fight in court against youth protection when we didn't agree. As expert of the family, well, we're always been considered, even in court, as expert of the family. So we can go to court as expert. And that's very interesting in front of a judge. But now we don't go really very often because we develop tools with them. Hélène will talk to you about the circle of the child she developed with youth protection. So we're now more in a position where we can talk, and they will agree that we tried the last things to do before putting the child in foster home if we think we can succeed, you see, and if we can assure some security also. But we're so linked with the community that we have action that we can take that the youth protection cannot do. In fact, they don't have time, they don't have the tools, they don't, you know, they just apply the law. But that's a big controversy still in Quebec. We have the youth protection agencies on but it's very interesting clinic to use it also in your mind. Observation. So there's the development pathways and the experience the child, the adverse experience, in fact. And the more loss the child has, you know, different kind of loss, you know, it can be somebody who died, it can be being displaced of families, in, you know, anything you can think of, adverse reaction. When the loss, there's too much loss, there's less attachment, less identity, less resilience, and that's where you're going down, okay? And most of our children, the children we see are on that low slide to criminality or drug abuse or anything like that. So we create success, small success, very, very small one at the beginning. Music, they want to play sport, they want to learn how to, boxing, you know, anything they want, we'll address. We'll try to put them in different course and to create attachment and an identity. And that's a very strong method because it works. You develop more self-esteem, more confidence. They become secure. They learn about a balance. They start beginning again or trusting adults. And still, it's related to how to love a child. Okay, you just respond to their needs, what they want, what they ask, and the plan of action. The first step of the plan of action is creating success, all kind of success, and it works pretty well. So when you decide the plan of action, you keep in mind it's related to attachment, to identity. It creates resilience, and it's the most powerful tools for development, successful development.
When you're talking about attachment, are you talking about parental attachment, or what do you mean by attachment?
Adult attachment. Any adult, any peer, we have different programs. We have a program of like Big Brother, Big Sister, we call Big Friends. And they're there to create a normal attachment. They're invited to create attachment. The interveners are invited to create attachment. That's the difference between different systems where you cannot attach. Our system means you have to attach. If you miss that, you miss one of the most powerful tools to a better development of children, a better life expectancy, everything. We know that the science evidence is more and more that to love a child, to get close to a child. It makes the biggest difference because it creates attachment, secure, creates identity. It's better than any program or anything that you can put on. Love a child, you'll succeed with the child. And we think it's the best thing to do, but it's now more and more scientifically proved that that's what makes the most powerful change in life. And it's fun to do. That's the only it's fun. It's very interesting. I'm so pleased to do that. I won't stop. In fact, I told Jerry I'm not close to retreat, but I should make, but I don't want to. And because it's fun, it's empowering me too. So why not do it, in fact? The flesh. We mobilize family for sure. All kind of activities with families in the back street. Here they play there with the musical therapists with their kids. It creates a sense of belonging, of security also. We mobilize the community in different ways also. We have food in all kind of situation that we can get closer to the community to help. We have lots of volunteers who works in our organization. Many of them, just come to, and they used to tell us when we thank them, they say, "No, we thank you. It was empowering for us and a pleasure." So it's made with pleasure too.